Yeah, what is going on, everybody? Welcome into Alarm Fantasy Football. I'm Howard Bender. With me, of course, Andrew Cooper. What's going on, everybody? The NFL season is here, and we're already getting on to week 2. You're sitting here right now. This is the Fantasy Alarm Waiver Wire show, and Coop and I are going to be here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. For an hour, giving you all the latest plays that you need, your pickups, your stashes. Coop's got the articles over at fantasyalarm.com. You're going to want to make sure that you jump in on that. And I'll say this, if you are not a subscriber, do yourself a favor, hit that QR code right there at the top of the screen and get in on the action here with the family. fantasyalarm.com/all-pro is where you want to be. And I'll tell you what, when you sign up for that monthly or the full year, you get a 7-day free trial. So just take it for a free spin, see how it is. So we want to focus here on waiver wire. So no start sit questions here. I don't want to hear about your start sits for week 2 yet. This is about building your bench. It's establishing your lineup, and that's what we're looking at. But Coop, we can't go fully into week 2 without a little week 1 recap, right? Things that went right, things that went wrong. How was your week 1?
Honestly, it was football, so it was incredible no matter what. But, just like everybody else, it had its ups, it had its downs, right? Just think about it like a boxing match, right? Unless you're Mike Tyson, you're gonna get punched a couple times, right? Hopefully you get more shots in than you get hit. And then picture Howard and I, we're your cornermen, right? We come in, this was round 1. It was only round 1 of many rounds. Yeah, Howard's coming in with the ice compression. He's cleaning you up, right?
Right there on the eye, my DK Metcalf eye.
If you say your DK Metcalf eye is looking a little black, but you know what? It's like that's what we're doing here. We're going to take a break, talk about the first round real quick right now, and then we're getting to get into the waivers. What we're doing this year is basically Howard and John lock me in the dungeon for the entirety of Monday, and I write 3 articles on the top waiver ads, the best streamers for just this week, and the best stashes for long term. That's what we're going to do rest of the show. But first segment here, why don't we just talk a couple guys that we liked, right? A couple things that we saw that we liked, a couple things we didn't like. Was there anything that had you victory lapping first week?
I mean, listen, there's nothing worse than a victory lap in week 1. There's nothing worse than that. Although I did kind of, I antagonized Big Fantasy a little bit when I realized that not only did Dontavian Wicks suck in week 1, but you know what? Chase Brown didn't do anything for anybody either. And you know what? Ray Davis, anyone?
Ghost person. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you got to hop in the car and do the Polish lap backwards around the track here, but you're allowed to after 1 week, recognize some good weeks, right? So
absolutely.
What about your players? What about the players you liked?
All right, the players who I liked, there are 3 players who I really liked coming into this week, and I shouted them all out, across all the platforms here. Number 1 was Saquon Barkley. I talked about Kellen Moore's offensive scheme. All the Jalen Hurts truthers were like, no. He's still going to get 15 rushing touchdowns. It's a power run scheme, and Barkley is the ideal back for Kellen Moore's system. And we saw that right there. He should have had 4 touchdowns. He should have had 4, but he only had 3. What a jerk.
Only, right? Unbelievable.
Kenneth Walker. I said Ryan Grubb is an ex-offensive line coach, and he knows that he's going to have to run the football. We saw, we knew the matchup against Denver. Denver has a strong secondary. That's why I wasn't like out there screaming DK Metcalf's name. I screamed his name for the season. I didn't say it for week 1. But I did say Kenneth Walker for week 1 because Denver's got a soft run defense, and that worked out. And then from the receiver standpoint, you guys, if you saw the video across my socials at RotoBuzzGuy, see the name right down there. It's at The Real RotoBuzzGuy if you're on TikTok. But RotoBuzzGuy, I talked about Jameson Williams, the expanded route tree. Now, listen, do I expect him to do what he did and Amon-Ra St. Brown to stink it up like he did? No, I don't expect that all season long. But I do expect growth from Jameson Williams across the entire season here. Expanded route tree, better work. So Barkley, Walker, and Jameson Williams, 3 guys who I had splashed all over, my lineups across all platforms. All 3 hit, Coop. all three.
And Kenneth Walker, that's one where if you paid attention, we knew that Grubbs was a guy that wanted to run more straight 11 personnel. Like there's certain guys like Sean McVay, Riverboat Ron Rivera that will just use the same 11 guys. That's what they want to do. And then they want to have backups that can do the same things. And Kenneth Walker not only played more rundowns, but he also played a ton of pass downs. And Ryan Grubbs said that he's electric out of the backfield. So worked out great. And, as long as he's healthy, he's the guy. And if anything happens, well, then Charbonnet will end up being the guy. Hopefully, Kenneth Walker keeps rocking enough and Charbonnet gets dropped to waivers where people had him. And then now you got that kind of floating around out there, which is nice. For me, I look around two of my Saints. So two of my guys, Alvin Kamara and Rashid Shaheed. This offense with Clint Kubiak was as advertised. The big thing for us is they went out and he used the fullback like he said he would. It opened up running lanes and it took the third wide receiver off the field. You didn't see much Cedric Wilson. You didn't see much A.T. Perry. It was Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed all day long. That highly consolidates things. The other thing, Foster Moreau played like 50 snaps and he only ran 13 routes and he blocked on 6 pass plays. That's exactly what you want. That's like what Charlie Warner was doing last year for the 49ers. If you have the more of these guys, Adam Prentice and Foster Moreau and even Taysom Hill playing fullback, the more those guys play that don't get targets, the more consolidated the targets will be among Kamara, Olave, Shaheed. It's what we wanted to see. So got to be fired up there. And then the other one where things, because again, Howard, it's week 1. So we're looking for where things match up in the box score and behind the scenes. Because sometimes they don't match all the way up, right? And I'd actually rather have them line up behind the scenes than just in the box score, right? Like if a guy played, 10 snaps and scored 2 touchdowns, that's not sustainable. With a guy like Chris Godwin, it went exactly the way we hoped behind the scenes as it did on the field, right? He played last year, Howard. He only played 1 game during the regular season where he played more snaps out from the slot than he did out wide. Very first game he comes out, plays more snaps from the slot than he does out wide, just like Liam Cohen said it was going to be, just like we hoped it would be. And he had a great game, caught a bunch of passes, scored a touchdown. And if you want Chris Godwin, you got to go buy him right now. You have to go buy him this moment because this past weekend, Cooper Kupp against the Lions got 21 targets, primarily playing out of slot. That's who Chris Godwin plays this week. So if you're going to buy him, make sure you buy him because they probably just watched Liam Cohen probably just watched his old coworkers out there working the slot over against the Lions, and Godwin's probably in line for another good week. So go buy those guys right now. Let's go.
I'll tell you then that Tampa game, we knew that Liam Cohen wanted to throw the ball more. Baker was so efficient, but they ran the ball, I think close to 30 times. You had 15 carries for Rachaad White, 9 carries for Bucky Irving. They splashed in a couple of other things, but I think the key takeaway there from also is that once they got inside that red zone, it was all through the air, right? 2 touchdowns to Mike Evans, 1 touchdown to Chris Godwin, 1 touchdown to Jalen McMillan. So what you're seeing there inside that red zone, that's something to definitely believe in. And it's something that we identified during the preseason. So I love it, man. I definitely love it. Right. I mean, the Saints, and obviously, the Saints stuff, we always have to take it with a grain of salt because Carolina, wow. How bad.
Terrible.
How bad.
Terrible. Well, the good news is they get to play Carolina again. That's how divisions work. Not to mention down the stretch for especially for Kamara, like you look at some of these teams, their matchups down the stretch are against the Rams, who just let up over 150 rushing yards without Aaron Donald. I mean, dude, was a team missing a player more than them missing Aaron Donald when the Lions in overtime just ran it right down the gut with David Montgomery? I mean, the Aaron Donald at home must have been like losing his mind, being like, I could have been right there.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, Monty's legs looked real fresh there also. Like that was, and that's exactly what Dan Campbell's been looking to do. Campbell, you could say what you want about him, like constantly going for 2 or, whatever you want to say about Dan Campbell. But you've taken a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs and you've taken a guy like Jameson Williams and you've said, I'm bringing them along slowly because I want them to be more versatile, complete players. And, the workload that Jahmyr Gibbs got during this game, and I saw, some plenty of inside runs out of him as well. To see the expanded route tree for Jameson Williams. You can criticize all you want about Dan Campbell. I tell you, he is definitely very good at developing his guys. So
I
want
can't.
to shout out
I
for
also. I just want to say on that Dan Cable thing, I can't believe all the people whining about Jahmyr Gibbs' usage on Twitter.
Yeah.
What did you expect? He told us. I mean, it was the same as it was last year. They told us. And Jahmyr Gibbs had 6 targets. He scored a touchdown. I mean, I'm not seriously. What did they think was going to happen? What happened was exactly what they said was going to happen.
Because everybody's wish casting. They're all sprinkling the fairy dust. When you're on the show with me on Fantasy Alarm on Sirius XM, right? We sprinkle the wishing dust all the time. Right. And this is what ends up happening. But, again, these coaches, they don't care about your fantasy team. So you can piss and moan about usage all you want. The Lions won. And their usage for Montgomery and Gibbs was on point. It was absolutely what they needed to be doing. So,
100%.
Again, you as the fantasy owner, you have to adjust to what the coaches are doing. The coaches aren't going to adjust to what you want to happen. That's a huge, huge thing that you got to make sure that you stay in touch. Before we get to a little accountability, because not everything went in our favor this week. I just want to shout out everybody who's in the chat room right now. Do me a favor, please hit that like button on the, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter, come over to YouTube and just hit that like button. It's just a free way to say we appreciate what you're doing here, and it helps us out 100%. But I see Ani Coop in here. I see Mr. Scampers in there. I see Evan Gittleman already trying to sneak in a start sit for week 2. He backed off. He saw it. Evan, we'll get to your question as far as like who to drop and things like that. But Mile High Luke, my boy Daniel from the Outdoor Call Radio Show. He's in here also. He was a CMC guy, and we talked about it. And I kept saying to him over and over again, right? Take the player you want in the first round. If you've got that first pick and you don't feel good about McCaffrey, then take somebody else. Take Bijan, take Breece Hall, take anybody else. Take CeeDee Lamb, for crying out loud. Whatever you want to do in the first round, and then you build your draft board around that. And so, you know what? The people who said no to CMC, definitely happy campers here. Although I'll tell you what, Coop, the first thing, listen, watching that Jets game was just an absolute atrocity. You know what it got me to do? It actually got me to unpack more boxes from the move rather than sit and watch that game and weep. Like that's what it did to me there. But I'll tell you what, at the post-game interview of Jordan Mason, when he was asked the question, so when did you know that you were going to be, when did you hear that you were going to be starting? And, everybody's like, oh, thinking maybe an hour before. And he was like, I don't know, maybe Friday night. Yeah, that's when I knew. And I was like, are you effing kidding me? Like all the Jordan Mason owners, all the McCaffrey owners, would this have not been a much more entertaining week 1 had we just known then what we knew an hour leading up to
it's crazy. I think the league might have to have a quick conversation with them about that. Though, of course, they're going to just say, we thought that McCaffrey could be available in a part-time capacity or blah, blah, blah. But, come on. If they knew to that degree, they should have had him listed as doubtful. That covers them, covers us, The thing is, if you list a guy as doubtful and then he plays, it's not like somebody comes and, there's like they dock you some sort of secret waiver points. It literally just list him as doubtful or questionable. It's just kind of crazy to me, man. But I'm sure there will be no repercussions on that. Okay, before we get to waiver stuff, and again, get your questions in. We'll definitely answer questions you have on waivers. Howard, we do have to mention some players we did like that didn't pop this week. That doesn't mean we don't like them moving forward, but fantasy points are fantasy points. And as Denny Carter has said, you can't feed your kids with air yards. So
you cannot feed your kids with air yards, 100%. I think above all, Coop, we should, as tight end whisperers, we should just take our lumps right now, right? We should just take our lumps. Sam Laporta finished, I believe, at tight end 7. And you had Trey McBride finished at tight end 9.
Pitts was in there with a touchdown.
Yeah, but he was like tight end 6 for us, right? Dalton Kincaid. Oh my Lord, Dalton Kincaid. Where did you go, my friend? Yeah, that was a hurtful one for me, Coop. Definitely a hurtful one.
Yeah, you know what's crazy though with Kincaid is that like all the behind the scenes numbers were good except for targets, which is the number one most important thing. I mean, he was still top 5 in routes, played like 70% of his snaps at a wide receiver spot. I mean, didn't pass block much. They just didn't throw him the ball. They only threw the ball 23 times. So I don't know. I'm not giving up yet, but week 1, good gravy.
Oh,
I
you
mean,
don't can't give up. Please, I got into that argument with Jim Bowden on the air yesterday. He was like, it was like, what was a call that you made heading into week 1 that was right? And he was like, I didn't buy into that. Take a top 5 tight end. I was
okay.
like, yeah, okay, for week 1, sure, but is that really the flag you want to plant here right now,
Yeah.
Jim?
Did it go much
It got
better if you
contentious.
Did it go much better if you drafted Jake Ferguson or David Njoku, who are now, I mean, that's actually way worse. I mean, like, what was your plan? And if you didn't take those guys, I will say while we're on it, Mark Andrews, and for me, the Mark Andrews concern is much deeper than Dalton Kincaid. His usage was good. The Chiefs obviously bracketed him, but he looked sluggish. I'm hoping that there's basically like 2 ways to look at it. We're hoping that he's just rusty because he didn't practice following the car crash, but there's a possibility, as we've seen with these tightrope surgery guys, notably last year, Tony Pollard said he didn't feel good until week 11, that maybe he's still getting back. It's a gruesome return. So I don't know. Fingers crossed that he has a bounce back week this week. But I mean, I think at the very least, Howard, it's no longer just Andrews and Flowers. It's Andrews, Flowers, and Likely. So
Mhm.
I'm not panicking. I'll probably still start Andrews where I have him. I didn't end up with him in too many spots, but I'll probably still start him where I have him, just like I'll still start Kincaid. And then, we'll slowly descend into madness if things don't turn around.
Fingers crossed. Um,
Fingers
couple,
crossed against the slow descent into madness.
I will say, DK Metcalf didn't come through this week, but again, I wasn't shouting him out. But for everybody who has come at me, Tyler Lockett out targeted DK Metcalf. He outproduced DK Metcalf. I will say this, that it's 1 week. And, when you're dealing with Patrick Surtain for the majority of the time in coverage, that's going to be a problem. So, that's why I wasn't like sitting there screaming DK Metcalf for week 1. I was looking at some alternative wide receivers there, but I was saying Javonte Williams, and we were talking about, the amount of pass catching work that he could end up doing. He did not get it. It went to Jaleel McLaughlin in this one, which was a little on the disappointing side. But Sean Payton had Bo Nix just slinging the rock all willy nilly. Like that was like where was establishing the running game at all in that scheme?
I don't know, dude. They got to figure it out pretty quickly over there, man. Because there's some teams where it certainly looked ugly, like the Broncos, and especially because like you're implementing these new offenses, it's high hopes across the board, and it looked bad. I got another one, Drake London, man. I don't know where he went. Kirk Cousins,
Cousins looked bad. Like
Cousins,
that was a lot. Like he doesn't look right. He doesn't look like he can spin on that ankle at
yeah,
all.
I saw a tweet that said he only exited the tackle box 1 time during the game. And essentially somebody else tracked that he only ran shotgun and pistol for the most part, and the number of times they ran it out of the pistol is basically telling teams that anytime they're running pistol, they're going to run. Anytime the shotgun's going to throw, so it's like they got to change something up. He's got to clean it up out there, or maybe it'll be Michael Penix time sooner rather than later. The other one I'll throw out there is in Superflex and Best Ball, I was drafting on Deshaun Watson, hoping he could maybe return to form. Man, he looked gross, and they had so many chances. It's not one of those things where it was like they didn't throw a ton or the game script wasn't good. He had plenty of opportunity to throw. He could not find anyone. He couldn't find Amari Cooper. He found Jerry Jeudy in like garbage time. Elijah Moore continues to be one of the worst wide receivers in the league that continues to get a ton of usage. Not good for Deshaun Watson. So those are mine. Mark Andrews, Drake London, Deshaun Watson.
You see, he's
Not
being
great about
sued again. There's another
all
lawsuit
that.
that just jumped
Yeah.
up, right? Is that not like Cleveland's just the best way for Cleveland to say, we'll just eat the guaranteed money? Can we just put in Jameis Winston? Let's just do that
I
because
think it would be a good time for that, and it'd be a lot more
I think it
fun.
would be as
Jameis
well.
Winston's a lot more fun. All right, let's jump
Wait,
over.
wait, 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 wait. No. You see, you said I host today and I run the show. So
Fine.
Coop, before we get to these extensive waiver wire articles that you did put together, which by the way, so good. Like broken down into
That's why I'm trying to jump over.
I know. You're trying to get in there, but you know what? I want to shout out to the people here who are joining us because listen, there's a nice little debate going on here about benching studs. Our boy Chris Diaz wants to know, will Dalton Kincaid show up against Miami? And I'll say this, I'm diving into these matchups and stuff like that, but Miami did a pretty good job of containing Evan Engram. So now I got to see what they're going to have in store for Dalton Kincaid. So I'm not 100% sure about that one, but I've got the watch list is coming out later today. I want to jump to this question here from Trent Ganja, and it's not just because it's Ganja, but always a special place in my heart there. I traded Amari Cooper for Tank Dell because I have no faith in the QB play in the line of the Browns. Good move or bad move? Coop, we started talking about this. We were texting back and forth yesterday about this. Mm-hmm. Looks like Tank Dell might be on the field a little bit more than I thought he was going to be for this entire season. Tell everyone why.
Yeah, so we figured that Tank Dell would be the odd man out in 2 wide receiver sets, which technically he was, but the Texans decided to cut right kind of towards the end of the season there. Essentially all their fullbacks, even Ben Skowronek, they kept one, British Brooks. So, I talked to Colby Conway and they seemed to like the guy, but British Brooks didn't play any fullback. He only played special teams. So they basically decided to go away from the scheme they used last year and just use more 11 personnel, which saw all those guys on the field. Now, obviously, Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs had the better fantasy days, but Stephon Diggs was playing more slot and his ADOT was like 1.5 yards. So I think they're going to keep Diggs closer to the line of scrimmage. And you're going to see Nico play his big split end role, and Tank Dell is going to have a pretty full role. It's going to look more like a like you saw from the Seahawks, where it's just 3 wide receivers all the time. It might be inconsistent week to week, but I mean, if the Browns are just going to be flat out bad, then you got to try and pivot. So I mean, I'm hoping they kind of rate the ship, and Amari Cooper is solid, but I mean, like the Texans look great, so not a crazy trade.
The Texans do look great, and it is not a crazy trade. Now, it's a lot of what they're running in Houston because I was going through it play by play. I didn't tabulate the number of times they ran 12 personnel, but it was a lot of 12 personnel on the field, which still does the 2 receiver sets. But Tank Dell got like a 63% snap share because they did increase the amount of 11 personnel they used. But it's still, you are looking at still a lot of 2 receiver sets in comparison to what the rest of the NFL does. But it's happening with tight ends now. Is not happening with the fullbacks. And they kept lining up, what's it? Brevin Jordan. They kept lining up Brevin Jordan in the backfield also, serving as that fullback. So just something to kind of keep in mind. All right. This next question here, Coop, this dives right into what you want to talk about here. Super deep league here from Flo. All the top guys are rostered. I've got Javonte Williams. I have number 1 waiver priority. Should I spend it on Alexander Madison? So, Coop, where did Madison show up in your articles? Was he in the acquire these guys? Was he in the waiver claim guy? Was he a stash guy? Was he a streamer guy? Where did you have him? And yes, you know what? Before you answer that, give everybody the outline of your articles so that they all know.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what we're doing this year. We're doing things a little differently because I felt that most waiver articles that I find don't take into account your team. They don't take into account where you are. It's very difficult. I mean, we give a lot of custom advice here and on the Discord, but what I wanted to do was basically break down the article into 3 articles. Now is going to be the main waiver article. These are the guys that are our top ads, and we think they can be good right now and long term. Anybody fits that criteria goes in that article. Then we have 2 more articles. The streamers article. These are going to be players that we like for this week specifically. If you have a hole in your lineup, if you lost David Njoku, if you lost Jake Ferguson and you need someone for this week, that's where guys are going to go there. And that's going to include anybody that has at least a few weeks of of upside, whether it's just good matchups, whether it's Puka Nacua is now going on the IR for a few weeks, right? So that's where those guys are going to live. And then there's going to be another article called the stashes, which these are guys that don't have an opportunity right away, and you really cannot trust them in the lineup, but they have talent, and there's a chance that down the stretch they could become the guy. In our week 1 article, before the season even started, the number 1 player in that article was Jordan Mason, right? We didn't know Christian McCaffrey was going to be out, so he was the number 1 handcuff that we believe in the talent. They got rid of Elijah Mitchell. In fact, they put him on IR. Jordan Mason was beating him out anyway, and you saw what can happen when these guys get the role. We saw last year what could happen when Trey McBride gets that job, right? So there's going to be 3 different articles, and that way you can look at your lineup and you can say, okay, I got a pretty balanced lineup. I'll just add guys from the waiver article. Or you could say, man, I'm really hurting. I need a streamer this week. Or you say, my team is a wagon. I have a ton of studs. The only one that's ever going to crack my lineup is another guy that comes out of nowhere to be a megastar, like Jordan Mason if he were to start. And that's the deal. All right. There you go. So you can shop for the kind of player that fits your lineup. All 3 of those are up now. So for me, Alexander Madison, where he fell this week, is in that main article, right? So for me, but I wouldn't use the number 1 waiver priority on him. The only guys that I'm using my waiver priority, if you have that rolling waivers, is if your league is thin enough that a guy like J.K. Dobbins is there. J.K. Dobbins impressed me enough, and he had enough of that role that I would use my number 1 priority on him if I needed a running back. If Rashid Shaheed were there, I would use it on him. And if Brandon Cooks were there, I would use it on Brandon Cooks if you needed a wide receiver. Beyond that, I'm going to hold on to it and kind of hope for the big one. The question I want to ask you, Howard, is Jordan Mason is interesting from that standpoint because we believe in the talent, and he could start again this week, but he could also go kind of back in the bottle when Christian McCaffrey returns. So is that worthy of enough? Like obviously with Fab, that's a better format, and I included my percentages for Fab in there as well. And I'll pull them up for Madison. If you are a Fab league for Madison.
Oh, Madison. It's so funny. How did Madison end up with 60% snap share? But I'll tell you what, just so that everybody kind of understands certain things. Madison, if you take away that, what was it, a 31-yard receiving touchdown, there really wasn't a lot of efficiency. I still think that this is Zamir White's backfield. Now, I know that he coughed up the football, and that was Antonio Pierce being like, we don't fumble here. So I'm going to give, some extra work to Madison. I don't necessarily know if I can buy into Alexander Madison. I mean, we've seen him for a couple of years now. We've seen what he does.
And that's why we're not dropping. So I have him as free or late priority if you have waivers, 0 to 5% of your budget. So, and again, probably a free ad if possible. The thing is, Alexander Madison's basically in the job we hope that Dylan Lally would get, where it's Zamir White is the early down back. He's much stronger. He's going to be the goal line back. And then for pass downs, they went to Madison. That's exactly how it worked. Madison got the 2-minute drill. He got the rest of that work. So for certain matchups, you can utilize this guy. Like let's say in your very deep, crazy league, like the Scott Fishbowl, and you just need warm bodies and you're looking to play matchups. That's where Alexander Madison comes in the streamers article, because we look at it, we say, okay, Zamir White is the early down back and Alexander Madison is the pass down back. Who do they play this week? If they're favored, then we'll want the early down back. If they're going to have to pass, we want the pass down back. Oh, look, the Raiders play the Baltimore Ravens. Do you think they're going to be favored this week, Howard, against the Baltimore Ravens?
Do I think they're going to be favored against the Ravens?
No. Right. So is this a Zamir White game, or is this potentially another Madison game? That's kind of how you got to play it with these teams that are going to split things up. So that's where we're at with Madison, but definitely not a number 1 waiver priority guy. And again, get your questions in, and we'll do our best to and tell us who your starters are. We'll do your best to give custom advice here. But if you go and utilize those articles, you can apply. You'll get the thought process a lot better, and you'll apply it to your own your leagues, and you'll do what we try to do here at Fantasy Eagle Arm, which is think dynamically. Don't think in terms of linear rankings or dime a dozen articles that are top 5, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. Use your noggin, okay?
Use your noggin, right? What is that? It's the line from A League of Their Own. Use your head. It's that lump of crap sits 3 feet above your ass. That's what we're trying to encourage here, but in a nicer sort of a way. Let's see. All right, before we dive in further, yes, Mile High Luke, email me, rotobuzzguy@gmail.com. We'll talk. We'll talk. I don't know. He said wants to send me a little gift package. I'm sure it's like a, like a Bo Nix jersey or something like that. So I am all into that. All right. Coop, the people want to know. Let's start. Let's go position by position here, right? So let's
Okay.
start with your waiver wire article, the targets, the guys who we're going after right now. Quarterbacks, obviously, people are intrigued by Justin Fields, but a lot of people lost Jordan Love. How are you replacing Jordan Love at least for the next 3 to 6 weeks?
Yeah. So Justin Fields, I can tell you, he falls into the streamers category where obviously you can use him if he's starting again because he ran a ton, but you're not going to bank on him rest of the year because they didn't score a touchdown. The team didn't score a touchdown. They won the game, but I mean, the door for Russell Wilson is still wide open, right? So for me, if I have to add somebody, I'm going to Baker Mayfield, and he's available 33% of Yahoo, 30%. Sorry, he was only rostered on 33% of Yahoo, 30 ESPN, 42 Sleeper. So well more than half the leagues. And I mean, Howard pointed out earlier on the show that the red zone for this team looks like the way they operated with Tom Brady. It looks like what Aaron Rodgers likes to do, which is call his own number down there. They are confident in their obviously if you have Mike Evans, it's easy to be confident, but they're confident in their pass catchers and they're confident in Baker Mayfield, and they want to throw in that range, right? And last year, Baker Mayfield was a top 10 quarterback in fantasy football. That's a fact, right? That happened. And he comes out this week, and what is he, QB2 this week behind only super mobile options? I mean, for me, I look at Baker Mayfield, and he's not only in my articles, he's not only the number one waiver wire ad for quarterback, but he's the number one streamer because he gets Detroit this week, right? And that's going to be another one of those ones that Vegas is going to come out and say the over under is probably above 45. I haven't checked it yet, but they're probably going to put that one towards the top of the shootout potential games. So absolutely interested in Baker Mayfield. It's 51.5 is the over under on that one, Howard. So
Oh, really? 51.5 already. I love that. Let me ask you a question here, because I feel like he's sort of the similar ilk to Baker Mayfield, right? You said Justin Fields, great streamer. He's got that rushing upside. Baker Mayfield, pocket passer. What they're doing as far as the running game goes. Where do you stand on Derek Carr? So he looked strong. Obviously, the short, high percentage passing that they do, in New Orleans now, it's not the Air Coryell offense anymore. This is dink and dunk. And what it does is obviously when you've got that strong ground game for Kamara and you've got the dink and dunk passing, it's opening up things like that bomb to Shaheed, like really early on in that game. Do you rank Derek Carr similarly to Baker Mayfield?
So I have Baker ahead because I'm confident in starting Baker this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Carr to me is more of a stash, and here's why.
Okay.
One, they're playing Dallas this week, so I don't really love that. Two is we saw one promising thing. Taysom Hill only played one quarterback snap. That's been the whole reason we haven't liked Carr is they bring in another quarterback in the red zone. Taysom Hill played one this week. If they go out, so I'm willing to add Carr. I put him on the bench. And if Taysom Hill is just going to play fullback and tight end and he's not going to mess with the quarterback, maybe Clint Kubiak actually just wants to let his quarterback play quarterback for once. Imagine such a thing. Like if Derek Carr is the every down quarterback for this team, which sounds nuts to say the word every down quarterback, but that's been a huge problem. If he's an every down quarterback for this team, then yes, we're going to keep moving him up and up and up. But right now, I just got to see like another game where Taysom Hill doesn't come in and ruin things. And if it happens, once a game, I mean, no, if it happens once a game, that's a huge problem. It really is, Howard. It's a huge problem if the quarterback comes out at the goal line. So I got to see it one more time. But Clint, do the right thing, okay? Do the right thing. Let Taysom play fullback. Let him play whatever else. You can play every other position on the field.
Position
as long as it's not quarterback.
All right, so Baker there, top guy. Carr, more of a streamer, not as confident in him as you are in Baker. Any other QBs that you're looking at?
Yeah. And if you're really struggling, if it's deeper leagues where people hold two quarterbacks, keep an eye on Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold looked really good passer rating was like 113. They didn't have to throw a ton because the Giants, sorry, Deb, but the Giants don't look that good. But, and they looked even worse in those stupid uniforms. Like, talk about looking double stupid. I'm sorry. Like, just if you're gonna wear those, you got to play better. But anyway, Sam Darnold looked really good. Not only 113 passer rating, but also second highest passing grade on Pro Football Focus. And that's where we say, hey, you know what? If this guy's going to be okay, and he's going to throw to Justin Jefferson and the gang. Now, again, he's more of a stash because we need Addison to come back, who got nicked up, and we need Hawkinson back. But down the stretch, if he's looking good, and it's not only just Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison Hawkinson, but I mean, Aaron Jones looked like Aaron Jones, which is a very good pass catching back as well. I don't know. Sam Darnold could definitely make some noise.
So I thought Sam Darnold. I was saying people are just kind of underselling him a little bit and just kind
A
of
little bit.
crapping on him. Jefferson didn't go for 100 yards, but he looked good. He looked fine. Darnold was efficient with him. That's going to be a nice little budding relationship. I'm not saying Darnold's going to be the be all end all. I'm just saying I'm less afraid of what happens with Justin Jefferson, knowing that Sam Darnold can be an efficient QB. Let's go to the running back spot here. So we talked about Alexander Madison. He was a guy who's, not going to use that number one waiver priority. You do like using that number one waiver priority on J.K. Dobbins. He looked incredibly explosive in this in this first week here. Talk to me about running backs. Obviously, is Jordan Mason, should Jordan Mason be that big target for everybody? Everybody wants to know, whether you have CMC or not. We don't know if CMC is going to be healthy. Like at what point is he come back and he's CMC again? So does Mason become your number one running back target?
You know what's crazy about this set of articles is that I have Jordan Mason he's always going to be at the top of the stashes article because he's such an incredible stash, right? Because given the situation, and he's at the top of the streamers article because if Christian McCaffrey doesn't play against the Vikings, where do we rank him? Like 2, 3, running back 3, 4, 5 against the Vikings? Jordan Mason?
If Jordan Mason is getting the full workload, yes, you have to rank him fairly high up among running backs against Minnesota.
So he's at the top of my stashes and streamers, but I feel like somebody else is going to overspend on him versus what I want to do because I'm worried that he's going to go back in the bottle. Like, I mean, you have Christian McCaffrey and, so I'm willing to let other people go there. So for me, it's J.K. Dobbins. That's a guy who I look at and I say, J.K. Dobbins got just as many carries as Gus Edwards, and he looked more explosive, and he got like all the pass work. So he's got 75% of the job. I mean, this is the split that we saw with like Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, or the split we see with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier last year. It's like if there's a running back that's getting half the work, which is Gus Edwards, and he's getting all the pass work and half the run work, I mean, especially on a team that wants to run it, right? And this week is actually a pretty good matchup for them.
Carolina, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So J.K. Dobbins, I would use the top priority on. He's owned he's rostered in many, many leagues though, so difficult there. And then the next guy I like after Madison, well, kind of right in line with Madison, is Bucky Irving.
Yes, my boy. I did a short. It'll be up on Fantasy Alarm at some point. Bucky Irving, like everybody's running to Madison and everybody's running to Jordan Mason. Talk to me about Bucky Irving, please.
Right. So we knew that Rachaad White was inefficient last year. It was brute force volume, which is always a dangerous way to live in this league because we've seen some brute force volume out of guys like, I don't know, Damian Pierce and Phillip Lindsay. So brute force volume, and then they bring in a guy that caught a ton of passes in college. Bucky Irving, easily the best pass catching back in this class, 50 catches last year. And then right before the season, Todd Bowles goes, "Yeah, we'll just go with the hot hand at running back." To which everyone was like, "What? What? Since when?"
I mean, listen, that was actually a great quote because we've kind of sat there and we've crapped on Rachaad White throughout the entire offseason talking about how inefficient he was. Like Bowles was like, listen, Rachaad White is the lead back in this system because we haven't played a game yet.
Right.
Like that was the important thing. Like because we haven't played a game yet, it defaults to Rachaad White. But
yeah, and then so Rachaad White started. He was not efficient with his carries. In fact, Bucky Irving on fewer carries got almost double the yards. Rachaad White ran for like 2 yards a carry. Bucky ran for like 6, 7. And then Rachaad White, granted, bailed himself out with 75 yards in the pass game. But there's kind of two ways for Bucky to claw away work here because he's a great pass catcher already, and he was just more efficient. If they're going to go with the hot hand, I just don't see how they can look at it and say Bucky wasn't the hotter hand running the football this weekend. So definitely worth throwing onto your deeper benches.
Yeah, I was talking about it. Like Bucky Irving is, but see, here's the thing: like Rashad White got all that pass catching work. Bucky Irving is a decent pass catching back. I mean, this dude caught 87 passes over the last 2 seasons at the University of Oregon, with Bo Nix just dumping it off to him. Racked up over 700 yards. So I look at this and I say that to me, this, like, yeah, it could be a split, and Bucky maybe gets the early down work, and Rashad White comes in on passing downs. But I mean, I definitely think that we're gonna see like it's gonna kind of level off, and then all of a sudden,
Could
hi
happen. It could
Bucky.
happen. We've seen it happen.
Ooh.
We've seen it happen before. I mean, I saw it with Kyron Williams. We've seen it plenty of times where these guys just kind of take it over. So we'll have to see.
All right, let's go to wide receiver position here, because this is a huge one here. And my buddy Dan from Outdoor Call Radio Show is dying to know. Does he have to get Greg Dortch? Does he have to get Michael Wilson? Because obviously Kyler Murray hates Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't even know what happened in that one. Do you?
So there's some ugly stats going around regarding Kyler Murray. I hate it, but Kyler Murray, very good rusher. Ugly stats going around regarding Kyler Murray's ability to throw the football over 10 yards. Basically, last year was not efficient. This week, 0 for 7 on such passes, right? So he's got to get on the same page. That's a on the same page question. I still believe in Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to have big games and they're going to figure it out, but for the time being, not on the same page. So we'll have to see. So I wouldn't panic, but definitely go out. If these guys are available, Rashid Shaheed, I'm using my top waiver priority. I'm dropping a bucket of fab. Same with Brandon Cooks, to be honest. We already liked Brandon Cooks.
Mm-hmm.
He got the role we were hoping. Jalen Tolbert was on the back burner. Jalen Brooks and Ryan Flournoy, you can forget about him. And then Jake Ferguson got hurt. And looks like he did not no ACL, but MCL sprain. He's going to miss some time. So it's Cooks, man. They don't have like Luke Schoonmakers. They're not going to step up and collect those targets. I looked at practice squads and free agents, Howard, and we're talking like Jesper Horsted and Donald Parham's on the practice squad. They could steal him maybe, but there's not much out there, man. So I think it's Cooks for the time being. Those are two top priority ads. Romeo Dubs, if he's available, obviously as well. I was shocked to see that was one where I wasn't going to include him in the article. I didn't even think about it until I started looking at roster ship percentages in some of these formats. And 34% on ESPN, Romeo Dubs is available in 66% of leagues.
Oh, I know. I dig that. I dig that so much.
Yeah, so just add him. I mean, he was the number one. He was the top outside wide receiver for the Packers. I know Jordan Love banged up, but I had to include him because of that. And then Wan'Dale Robinson didn't get the full-time role. So it's not full-on wheels up because he's still Malik Neighbors played every snap outside. Robinson played every snap in 11 personnel, which was good. But then he did come up for 2 wide receiver sets. But, I mean, dude, they threw him the ball 11 times. 12 times? Threw him the ball 12 times. So, I mean, you got to find a bench spot for anybody that gets 12 targets. You just have to.
Where are we going with the Rams situation right now? Puka Nacua landing on IR, designated to return, but will be out for 4 weeks. We know that Cooper Kupp is the guy, but we saw 7 targets to Demarcus Robinson. We saw 7 targets to Tyler Johnson. Where are you at with the Rams passing attack there in the absence of Puka Nacua?
Yeah, and Tyler Johnson, to be honest, I've seen enough of him. There was some hype from him coming out of Minnesota, but I've seen enough of him to not be super interested. I think Demarcus Robinson, if you need to start somebody, you go with him. If you want to stash somebody in your very deep leagues, I mean, this is the opportunity that people wanted for Jordan Whittington. He didn't really play this week, but maybe they install something with him and he looks good and they keep, it goes up and up. So the way I'm looking at it is this: stash, deep league, Jordan Whittington, start Demarcus Robinson. Yin and Yang tight end rankings, we moved Colby Parkinson way up the inside because guys like Zach Ertz and Colby Parkinson, if you just need to keep things afloat, I mean, why not those guys now? Because Colby Parkinson played. They threw the ball like 50 times, and Colby Parkinson ran like 42 routes out. So he's out there, out and about. And if there's no Puka Nakua, why not, dude? That caller saying Puka Nakua is like burned in my head, Howard.
Well, because
Puka
that was
Nakua, Puka Nakua.
for anybody who hasn't heard. So Coop and I were doing a show on Sirius XM, and for whatever reason, Pokemon was like all abundant in there, and I don't know anything about Pokemon. And Coop and Josh and Shan were going bonkers. So we were like, all right, who's your favorite Pokemon? The caller called up and I was like, we're talking Pokemon. Who's your favorite? And this guy was like, Puka Nakua.
Puka Nakua. I can't. My head just goes Puka Nakua every time I hear his name. Puka Nakua.
Puka Nakua.
So Puka Nakua's out. Jeez, Colby Parkinson. Yeah, Colby Parkinson. I mean, because again, if the targets are going to be even amongst Demarcus Robinson and Tyler Johnson and Colby Parkinson, only one of those guys is tight end eligible, and it's huge value to have that eligibility in fantasy. So yeah, we moved up on the safe side. Ertz and Colby Parkinson. If you lost Njoku and Ferg and you had no one else on your roster, you got to start with your lineup. So that's where we'll probably start.
MMA Playa wants to know about Parkinson versus Goddard this week. We're going to do some start sits tomorrow there, Playa, but at least you know that that Coop is definitely in on Colby Parkinson. Before we jump into the rest of the tight end waivers, just want to get this question in here from Southsco 650. Bucky Irving, Tank Bigsby, Justice Hill, or Jamal Williams. If you're making a waiver claim here, Coop, put these guys in order for me.
Everything always comes back to me hating Taysom Hill. Because if Taysom, like every question needs to be prefaced with if Taysom Hill didn't exist, because I mean, I kind of liked it with Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams, I know it was garbage time, but scored a touchdown, looked pretty good. But you got this other goal line annoyance, so you can't really do it. For me, it's Bucky Irving because he has the clearest path. Tank Bigsby, we had in the stashes section of the article. He did get half of the run work, right? But Travis Etienne got all the pass work. So if you look at the split between J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, Tank Bigsby carved out a bigger role than we expect, but it was the Gus Edwards part of the role, where it was 12 carries for him, but he only ran like 7 routes. And then Travis Etienne got 12 carries, but he ran like 17 routes. So Etienne, obviously, it's not ideal, but he still has the better half of that role. And then Justice Hill, I mean, full PPR, a lot of flexes, maybe. And that, like, he probably has the most standalone value right now, but it's still Lamar Jackson, it's still Derrick Henry. So I don't know. I like Justice Hill. What do you think about Justice Hill, Alan?
I don't mind Justice Hill. I think that he's, I mean, again, it's obviously, not trusting, Derrick Henry too much in the passing game because Justice Hill is definitely a better pass catcher. But I will say that how many times are the Ravens going to be down where you're going to need to use Justice Hill in that fashion? I mean, that game against Kansas City is one thing. Right. Talking about beating up on other opponents. Who do the Ravens play again this week?
The Raiders. Remember we were talking.
There you go. So it's going to be a lot of Derrick Henry. I don't see a lot for Justice Hill. Just want to throw this comment up there. This one's for you, Coop. Got to catch a ball.
So crazy.
All right. So here we go. Let's wrap things up here with a little tight end talk. Mile High Luke, we are still starting all top 6 tight ends over any of these week 1 spot starts. Probably I am, at least. I'm not gonna, I mean, I like Isaiah Likely if he's, out there and you have Isaiah Likely versus like a Freiermuth. Well, then maybe I'll take a look at an Isaiah Likely in that sense. Right. But not any of the top 6 tight ends am I going to put on the bench in favor of like a Colby Parkinson or, even an Isaiah Likely.
You would have had to go like power yin and yang tight end with like an Evan Engram and a Brock Bowers for me to say bench even Evan Engram, right? Like if you have Bowers, then maybe, right? As your guy that you're adding or whatever, but like the usage for these guys is fine. Kyle Pitts played every snap.
Every snap.
I love that. Ran every route. It didn't block one time on a pass play. Like that's if they can just figure it out. Like if Kirk Cousins just kind of figures it out, then boy, he could make moves. And then Mark Andrews, I'm still going to start him because he ran more routes, he played more snaps, he played more wide receiver snaps than Isaiah Likely. I mean, on paper, his job was better. He just got super bracketed and he looked a little rusty. So I'll give him one more shot here. Dalton Kincaid, you're keeping those guys in there. So, and again, the whole mid tier of tight ends got the rug pulled hard with, Ferg's gone, Njoku's gone, and Goddard's exactly fine. I mean, we told you what Goddard was. You know what Goddard is. You got the most Goddard week you've ever gotten from him this week. It's like, I can't. It's one of those things where it's like, if you drafted Dallas Goddard, you got exactly what you expected. So start Dallas Goddard again this week and use a bench spot on the highest risk, highest reward possible player you could throw on there.
All right. Well, let's talk about, so Isaiah Likely obviously tops that list for waiver wire here. Talk to me about a couple of tight ends who are floating out there. Who are the targets? Who are the stashes? Who are the streamers? Where do you like it?
Yeah. So what matters to me most early on in the season, even more than targets, right? In target share is route participation. That's number one. I want to see who's not blocking on pass plays. I want to see who's out there running routes. I want to see who's lining up at wide receiver, right? So Kyle Pitts, this is what it looks like when it's perfect. 100% route participation, 75% of his snaps from the slot, 0 pass blocking snaps, 9.3 yards average depth of target. That's going to be on my sheet. That's going to be green across the board. We can forgive the target share business because they didn't throw much, right? Trey McBride, 89% route participation, 30% target share, 58% wide receiver snaps, 8.4 A dot, 0% pass block. That's perfect, right? Guys that were in the top 10 for that didn't really pop. Hunter Henry, 82% route participation, played about half his snaps from a wide receiver spot, 11-yard A dot, and they didn't throw a ton, but 12.5% target share we could handle, right? Hayden Hurst quietly they only threw 26 times, but 3 targets to 26 is 11% target share, which is fine. 80% route participation. He ran 83% of his snaps from a wide receiver spot, Howard. So they're just putting Will Disley as an inline guy. He's running routes. And then we're not going to give up on Greg Dulcich just yet. So we're going to hang on to him. One guy that jumped up in the Yang column is Theo Johnson, Howard.
Ooh.
Theo Johnson came out 75% route participation, played 54% of his snaps at wide receiver, 8%, 8-yard A dot. The one kicker for him is they did ask him to pass block a little too much, 16%. So it's not the end of the world, single game sample size, but that's a killer because you'll lose. I mean, he played so many snaps that he blocked on 16% of his pass plays and still had a 76% route participation. He played like the whole game. So those are the guys we're watching for on the upside side. On the safety side, we're looking at Zach Ertz. We're looking at Colby Parkinson. You can drop Jonnu Smith. You can drop Kate Otten. You can drop
so quickly out on Jonnu, man. So quickly out on him.
Jonnu, man. Jonnu.
What a great blocker.
48 round. Yeah. Geez. 48 pass plays. He only ran 19 routes.
I know.
To put that in perspective, Theo Johnson, they passed 50 times. They passed 42 times and he ran 36. So 38. So, I mean, it's just can't do it. Can't do it, man. So I want to ask you one here because, I want to get your opinion on this one. You still got the tight end whisperer in you. And this one's got to come out of the spreadsheet. Because obviously you could drop Cole Kmet, you could drop him off the face of the planet. We told you guys this happened. Did you see the numbers? 21 routes for Gerald Everett, 12 for Cole Kmet. I hate to say I told you so. Just kidding. I love to say I told you so. I told you so.
Oh my God. Where are my glasses? Dang it. I just go like this.
There you go. I told you so. But I got to ask, if you're sitting there with someone like Dalton Schultz, given what we now know about the wide receivers and all 3 of them playing, do you drop Dalton Schultz in favor of like a Zach Ertz or Colby Parkinson, or do you drop him in favor of somebody with more upside, or you just kind of start him and then use a bench spot. I mean, because Dalton Schultz is he's in a tough spot.
He is in a tough spot, but listen, again, it's not that like they're not overloading on 3 receiver sets there in Houston. It was predominantly 2 tight end sets. Dalton Schultz played 80% of the snaps. I don't know how many routes that he ran. You probably have that number in front of you.
It was good. So here's the thing: his profile got weird now with 3 wide receiver sets because he played a ton of snaps. He actually ran 79% of the routes, which is good. Only 23% from a wide receiver spot, which makes sense though. Now that they have 3 wide receivers, ADOT was like 4 yards. So it's like, yeah, he's just being used like more of a true inline tight end now.
Okay.
So like a souped up Noah Fant.
Souped up Noah Fant. How do you soup up a Noah Fant? That's like what? I don't even know. It's like putting a rudder on your, soapbox derby car. That's about it, right?
So putting racing stripes on a minivan.
All right. So again, check out these articles over at fantasyalarm.com. Coop's got the whole series out there. Waiver wire targets, waiver wire streamers, waiver wire stashes. He covers it completely for you guys. And again, get on over there. The waiver wire targets article, that is free. And that does include Coop's tight end yin yang work there. But for like streamers and stashes and stuff like that, zap that QR code you see right there on the top corner of your screen. Go to fantasyalarm.com/all-pro. We're offering a 7-day free trial. So you can just take it all for a spin right now. See what it looks like for you for the week. Check out the betting, the DFS, all the season-long stuff that we've got over there. Coop, before we zip on out, let's get to a couple of questions here that I'm looking at in the chat. I want to start with our man Sergio, who's currently holding the Chargers and Ravens defense, wants to know about, scooping up that Bears D. I don't particularly like holding 2 defenses at all. But if you were to, are you thinking maybe the Bears over the Chargers D?
No. Chargers a good stream this week. If you have the Chargers and Ravens as your 2 defense, the Chargers playing the Panthers.
Yeah,
great news. Yeah, start the Chargers against the Panthers. The Panthers are the worst team in the league again.
Beautiful.
Yeah, the quarterback threw a pick on the first play of the game.
Our boy Rex Timotheus. So one of my teams, I drafted Kincaid and Kelsey. I'm starting both every week unless someone on my bench just shows up that can produce at a level above wide receiver 3. Am I wrong?
Started both. I'm guessing that's FFPC, which is tight end premium. No, you've with something like that, you're pot committed, man. So you just start those guys every week, and you hope that it pans out the way we thought. And you have to give it at least a couple weeks, man. Because the worst thing you can do is panic now, and then you start them for the bad week, and then you have them on your bench for the good week because they both played the whole game and they both ran a ton of routes. Like the upside's still there.
Of the top 5 tight ends, and maybe they all didn't participate well. Mark Andrews had the lowest snap count at 74%.
Which is still a lot.
Still a huge amount. It's like more than most, wide receivers.
Don't worry about it. We're gonna be fine.
And done. What's up, Rowdy? In a super flex, I only have Love and Cousins. Brissett is only one on the wire, but would have to drop either Pierre Strong, Justice Hill, Tyler Boyd, Jahan Dotson, Jamalfa Williams. Was just going to ride with Cousins till last week. All right, I'm fine dropping Strong, Dotson.
You don't have to drop everybody; just drop one of them. I would say you could drop Pierre. Yeah, both those 2 guys. Definitely hang on to Boyd and Hill though. DeAndre Hopkins is no. I have the yellow tape around DeAndre Hopkins until I see him practice. He needs to practice before Thursday. Like he's not healthy. He didn't even play half the game.
All right. Ann also wants to know: is there any need to hold Cade Otton in a tight end premium?
Cade Otton, like last year, he led all tight ends in routes run, and his yards per route run was like 0.8. And once again, he played a ton, didn't get a ton of looks. They just have better players. Jalen McMillan now makes it even harder. So you don't really got to hold him.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us here. Again, the Fantasy Alarm Waiver Wire show will be every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube channel. We're also streaming it on Twitch and on Twitter. But please, if you could go over to the YouTube channel, hit a like button, subscribe, maybe that would definitely be a fantastic way to show your appreciation. Coop and I will be back on Wednesdays, and that's where you get your trade questions, your lineup questions, like all of that fun stuff that you need to get ready for week number 2. That's going to be Wednesday's show. But in the meantime, want to thank everybody for tuning in here. An absolute blast hanging with you guys again. For Andrew Cooper, I'm Howard Bender. This is Alarm Fantasy Football.